This year on New Year's Day, my wife and I did something we've never done before. We talked to her parents about their will, their finances, and all their assets. And it shocked me. Well, it didn't shock me that much. So what happened was, on New Year's Day, we came down, we had our normal ozoni with mochi. I had two. And my mother-in-law then pulled out their will, all their bank details and documents, their insurance policies and everything else. And we spent a couple of hours going through it. So we went through the will, we confirmed what they wanted to do with everything. We went through their bank details. I made a note of which banks they had accounts at and the account numbers. And we went through their insurance policies and made sure that the policy was clear, the beneficiary was decided, and everything was okay. We also made a note of which companies they had policies with and the details of those policies. And this is something that really I recommend everyone does. It's actually pretty easy to get your inheritance and your estate planning done, and the consequences of not doing so can be terrible. One of my wife's friends is actually going through this right now. So their mother passed away and there's two siblings and they're no longer talking to each other. They've both employed lawyers. They're going through a lengthy and costly court adjudication just to decide something that could have been decided in 30 minutes just by sitting down with the whole family before their parent passed away. And there's really just three things you need to do to sort out your inheritance and estate planning. First, sit down with your family and anyone concerned and tell them what you want to do. Or if it's the case of your parents or grandparents, sit down and get them to tell you what they want to do. This can be a delicate situation, but it's so worth having this conversation before it's too late. One way to make it easier is to do something that I recommend when talking to, say, a spouse about finances, and that is to take yourself out of your normal environment. Go somewhere nice, go to a nice coffee shop, go to a ryokan, go to a hotel. Take some time, take enough time to do it in a relaxed and even fun manner. Sit down and talk about it. Once you've figured out what you want to do or what your parents or other family members want to do, now it's time to make a will. Now, making a will in Japan is fairly straightforward. I've got a link in the description to an article about this. If you're non-Japanese, there may be a chance that you need to make a will in your home country as well. How Japan treats foreigners in terms of the legalities of estate planning is that Japan will defer to your home country, whatever that may be. And some of those countries will then bounce it back to Japan. So in the case of the UK, Japan says non-Japanese residents will be treated under their home country law. If you're British, British law says non-resident citizens will be treated in terms of the country of residence's law. So they bounce it back to Japan. So for British citizens, you don't need to have a British will necessarily, unless you have assets in the UK. Now, for other countries, I'm not sure, you'd have to check about this. But it is worth making a will just to make sure you get your everything kind of straightened away properly. The third thing is probably the easiest, and this is making a list of assets. So it's really important to have a clear list of what you own, where, just so that your family can find it after you die. It's so common for people to lose bank accounts, not know about insurance policies or property even. So just making a simple list can really avoid this problem. And the list doesn't need to be comprehensive. It's just a list of, say, banks with maybe account numbers, probably the name on the account. You certainly don't need passwords or pins or anything that would allow people to gain access to these things. But just make sure that they have the enough information to know what exists in your name. And that's it. That's all you have to do. So talk to your family, make a will, make a list of what you have. And if you spend a day or two doing that, you can head off 90% of the problems and avoid basically destroying your family's relationships after you die. Making a will, sorting out your estate, making your wishes known is a real act of generosity to your family. So I really recommend you get that sorted out, even if you think there's not much chance of you dying in the near future, because you never know what could happen.